in our country.
I call Alan Peachy.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I guess it would be gracious of me to begin my remarks by congratulating the young list member opposite on his appointment as Labor spokesperson on education, and I think, Mr Chairman, that was probably his first substantive address on education in this House since his appointment. Yeah, well, there's quite a bit of work to be done, but I can recommend a book or two to that member that he may well find instructive. In fact, one in particular he may like to take as his Bible.
I'm one step ahead of the member.
If I could be so bold in speaking to this review, to say to the member who's just spoken, you have nothing to build on. Your party, the Labor Party, hasn't really brought any education policy to the table in the last 2.5 years. And I think that on reflection, the best place to start would be to go back to 1999 and draw a parallel to where the economy was in that time. Because the government that was elected in 1999, the Labor government, had the very best of times. Never in the memory of most New Zealanders has the opportunity been there to grow and develop this country. And the same comment could be said and is now being said about the schooling system. And when old dogs like myself get together and reminisce about our years of leading schools in the 90s and that sort of thing, we talk about that as having been a dream time to lead schools. Times when we were free of the control and the ordering and the bossiness that became a feature of the last Labor government's education policies. And it has to be said that schooling did not move forward in that 9 years. But at least, Mr Chair, at least as a fresh face, probably was even at school during those dream years in the 1990s, if the truth is known. There is a fresh face, and I would urge that member to take a completely fresh approach. And as I say, read the right books. A couple of specific things I want to talk about. One relates to special education. Special education stood still in a mire of ideology and argument and ultimately a refusal to come to grips with some pretty hard questions during the first eight years of this century. Now at least we are getting some movement as a result of this government. And I invite any member opposite to get up and say that they oppose the increase in ORS funding for the highest need children in our schools. Get up and say you do not support that. Don't sit there and scream and shout across the floor. Get on your feet and tell this House that you do not support the increase in ORS funding for the least fortunate of our children. I suspect I'll wait a long time. I invite members opposite also to get up and say they do not support the actions of this government in reinforcing and developing the role of special schools for our children. Get up and say that the Labor Party does not support special schooling education. Don't shout across the floor at me. Get up and say it so the people of New Zealand can hear you. I'd also, Mr Chair, like to make a brief comment about developments in early childhood education, because I suspect we're going to get a flurry about that in a moment.
That's right.
And I would invite the member who's going to deliver that little flurry, and it will be a little one, to explain to the people of Glen Innes and the Tamaki electorate that I represent in this Parliament why the Labor Party does not want their children to have a fair crack at ECE funding.
Ko Rahui Katani.